The blizzard came early that December, blanketing Boston in white silence before dawn broke. At 5:47 a.m., the temperature hovered at 15 degrees, and the city held its breath beneath layers of ice. Natalie Morrison stood outside the gates of Thornfield Estate, bags clutched in frost-bitten fingers, watching snowflakes dissolve against her coat. 34 years old, former CEO.
Current status: $3.70 in her checking account. Evicted yesterday. Car out of gas 2 blocks away where she'd spent the night, curled beneath a borrowed blanket that smelled like failure. The interview wasn't until 6. She'd arrived at 4:30 because there was nowhere else to go. Through the iron bars, she could see the house. 3 stories of old money and privilege, windows glowing amber in the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere inside, a man she'd never met was deciding whether to hire her, whether to give her a chance, whether she'd sleep in a bed tonight or return to the frozen interior of a Honda Civic with 187,000 miles and an empty tank. Her phone buzzed. Bank notification. Account balance $3.70. Overdraft protection declined. Natalie closed her eyes. 6 months ago, she'd stood on a stage at the Boston Convention Center, pitching EduPlay Incorporated to a room full of investors. Series A funding.
23 employees. A valuation that made her mother cry with pride. She'd worn Louboutins and believed in the future. Now she wore sneakers with holes in the soles and believed in nothing except making it through the next hour. The intercom crackled. A woman's voice, older, efficient. "May I help you?" Natalie pressed the button with numb fingers. "I'm here for the 6 o'clock interview. Childcare position. I know I'm early. I can wait." Silence, long enough that Natalie wondered if the connection had died. Then, "It's 15 degrees outside. I'll be fine." More silence. Natalie could almost hear the internal debate happening on the other end. Pity versus protocol. Compassion versus inconvenience. The gate buzzed. Metal groaned as it swung open. "Come to the kitchen entrance, side of the house." Natalie grabbed her bags, 2 duffel bags containing everything she owned now, and walked up the driveway on legs that had forgotten what warmth felt like. Inside the kitchen, heat hit her like a physical blow. Her body didn't know whether to lean into it or recoil. A woman in her late 50s stood by the counter, gray hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing an apron that had seen decades of use. "I'm Mrs. Caldwell, housekeeper." She handed Natalie a towel. "You're soaked through." "Thank you." Natalie's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I appreciate you letting me in early." Mrs. Caldwell studied her with the kind of eyes that had seen everything twice and judged very little. "When did you last eat?" The question landed like a punch. Natalie's stomach chose that moment to remind her it had been 36 hours since the free samples at the grocery store. "Yesterday morning?" No judgment crossed Mrs. Caldwell's face. She simply turned to the stove, cracked eggs into a pan, and pulled out bread. "Sit." Natalie sat. The kitchen was the kind of space that had been remodeled with unlimited funds, all marble and stainless steel, but it still felt like someone's grandmother lived here. Herbs in pots on the windowsill, a hand-embroidered dish towel, photographs on the bulletin board, though Natalie couldn't make out the faces from where she sat. The eggs arrived, scrambled perfectly, alongside toast with real butter. Natalie's hands shook as she lifted the fork. "Eat slowly," Mrs. Caldwell said, not unkindly. "Your stomach will revolt otherwise." Natalie obeyed. Each bite was an exercise in discipline. Her body screamed for her to inhale it all at once. Her mind knew better. Footsteps on the stairs, measured, purposeful, the kind of walk that belonged to someone who'd never questioned whether he'd eat today.
Marcus Thornfield entered the kitchen at exactly 5:58, 2 minutes before the scheduled interview time. Natalie's first thought was that he looked like someone had carved him from winter itself. Tall, over 6 feet, dark hair graying at the temples, blue eyes that held all the warmth of a January lake. He wore a suit even at this hour, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind that cost more than Natalie's last month of rent. He stopped when he saw her. His gaze traveled from her wet hair to the half-eaten eggs, and something flickered across his face. Not quite emotion, more like the memory of what emotion used to feel like. "You're early." Natalie set down her fork, wiped her mouth, and stood. "I apologize for the inconvenience, Mr. Thornfield. I miscalculated the commute." Miscalculated? That was one way to describe sleeping in your car because you had no other choice. He handed her a clipboard without ceremony. "Fill this out." The application was thorough. Previous employment: CEO, EduPlay Incorporated. Reason for leaving: company dissolution. Current residence. She hesitated, pen hovering over the blank line. What was she supposed to write? Homeless? Temporarily between addresses? The passenger seat of a 12-year-old Honda. She wrote, temporary housing. References: Dr. Sarah Bennett, child psychologist, the only person from her old life who still returned her calls. Jennifer Parker, friend since college, the one whose couch Natalie had worn out her welcome on 3 weeks ago. Marcus watched her write. She could feel his gaze like a physical weight, cataloging every detail, making calculations she couldn't guess at. When she finished, he took the clipboard and scanned it. His expression revealed nothing. "My childcare." The question came out flat, almost bored. "You ran a tech company." Natalie met his eyes directly. "I understand children. I built products for them. Now I want to work with them directly." "Or you need money." The truth sat between them like a third person at the table. Natalie could lie, spin some story about passion and calling, but something in Marcus Thornfield's face told her he'd see through it instantly. "I need both, Mr. Thornfield." Is that disqualifying? For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, more like the ghost of respect. "Follow me." He led her through hallways lined with photographs. Natalie caught glimpses of a blonde woman with a radiant smile, 2 small girls in matching dresses, family portraits that radiated the kind of happiness that seemed impossible now. In every photo, Marcus looked different. Younger, lighter, like someone had switched on a lamp inside him that had since burned out. They stopped at the base of a grand staircase. Marcus glanced up, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "Girls, come down, please." Silence. The house seemed to hold its breath. "Lily, Rose, now." More silence. Then, finally, the soft pad of small feet on carpet. 2 identical girls appeared at the top of the stairs. 5 years old, Natalie knew from the job posting. Blonde hair, wide blue eyes, wearing matching white nightgowns that made them look like tiny ghosts. They descended slowly, faces blank, holding hands with a unity that spoke of shared trauma. They reached the bottom and stopped 3 feet away, staring at Natalie with the kind of assessment that belonged to much older souls. Rose, the slightly taller one, leaned into her sister and whispered something Natalie couldn't hear. Lily's eyes widened fractionally. Marcus's voice held a warning. "Girls, say hello to Miss Morrison." Nothing. They stood frozen, 2 small statues in a museum of grief. Natalie felt Marcus's frustration radiating off him like heat. This was a test, she realized. Not of her skills or qualifications, but of whether she could reach two children who'd locked themselves away from the world. She knelt slowly, bringing herself to their eye level. "That's okay. I don't like talking to strangers either." Lily blinked. The first sign of life.
Natalie reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook, one of the few possessions she'd kept through everything. She flipped to a blank page and began to sketch. Quick lines, efficient strokes. Two girls standing side by side, but in her drawing, they wore crowns made of stars. At their feet, dragons curled protectively, breathing gentle fire. She wrote beneath it in careful letters, "The ice princesses who commanded dragons." Rose's hand loosened from her sister's.
She took one step forward, then another. Natalie held out the drawing. Rose took it with a kind of reverence usually reserved for holy objects. Her fingers traced the crowns, the dragons, the careful detail Natalie had put into their faces. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Can you draw more?" Natalie smiled, careful to keep it small, non-threatening. "I can. Would you like that?" Rose nodded.
Lily remained still, but her eyes had locked onto the drawing with an intensity that spoke volumes. Marcus cleared his throat. "Girls, go have breakfast with Mrs. Caldwell." They obeyed, but Rose clutched the drawing as she walked away, and Natalie saw her show it to her sister with something that might have been excitement underneath all that carefully constructed distance. Marcus gestured toward his office. Natalie followed, acutely aware of the water still dripping from her coat, the holes in her shoes, the profound gap between his world and hers. The office was exactly what she expected. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a view of the garden currently buried in snow, and there, on a side table, another photograph. Marcus and the blonde woman on their wedding day. Her smile could have lit entire cities. "Rachel," Marcus said, following her gaze. His voice held nothing. "My wife. She died 18 months ago. Breast cancer." "I'm sorry for your loss." "Everyone is." He sat behind his desk, creating a barrier of wood and power between them. "The position is straightforward. $2,500 per week, room and board included, 30-day trial period." Natalie did the math instantly. $10,000 a month. In 5 months, she could clear her debts, rebuild her savings, start planning her next move. "There are non-negotiable rules." Marcus pulled a contract from his desk drawer. "No personal involvement with the family beyond your professional duties. You will not discuss Rachel with the girls unless I explicitly give permission. You will provide daily written reports on their activities and well-being, submitted to me by 8 p.m. The girls follow a strict schedule, meals at exact times, structured activities. Routine is essential." He slid the contract across the desk. 12 pages. Natalie should read it, should examine every clause, every stipulation. But the bank notification was still open on her phone. $3.70. The memory of last night's cold car seat pressed against her consciousness. She picked up the pen and signed. Marcus's eyebrows rose fractionally. "You didn't read it?" "I accept the terms." He studied her for a long moment. "When did you last eat, Miss Morrison?" The question again. Natalie's throat tightened. "Yesterday morning." His jaw clenched. Something moved behind his eyes, there and gone too quickly to identify. He pressed the intercom button. "Mrs. Caldwell, bring food to the kitchen. Immediately." The day passed in a blur of orientation. Mrs. Caldwell showed her to a room on the 3rd floor, small but clean, with its own bathroom and a window overlooking the garden. A bed with fresh sheets, a dresser, a desk. Natalie set her duffel bags down and felt something crack inside her chest. She had a room. A door that locked. A bed that wasn't the back seat of a car. Mrs. Caldwell left her to unpack, which took approximately 10 minutes since she owned so little. Then came the tour. Playroom, girls' bedroom, bathroom protocols, kitchen access, laundry schedule, emergency contacts. All delivered in Mrs. Caldwell's efficient, no-nonsense manner. "They haven't eaten properly in 3 days," Mrs. Caldwell said as they stood in the playroom, surrounded by untouched toys. "The last nanny quit on Monday. That's the 9th one in 18 months. Why did she quit? Same reason as the others. They couldn't get through." Mrs. Caldwell picked up a stuffed elephant, smoothed its fur with practiced hands. Those girls loved their mother with everything they had. When she died, they locked themselves away. They test every nanny, every caregiver, everyone who tries to get close. They're waiting. For what? For their mother to come back. Mrs. Caldwell set down the elephant. Mr. Thornfield told them she was watching over them from heaven. They took it literally. They think if they're good enough, patient enough, she'll return. Natalie felt the weight of that grief settle over the room like fresh snow. That's not healthy. No. Mrs. Caldwell met her eyes. But he's not ready to let go either. So the girls stay frozen, and he stays buried in work. And this house just gets colder. She paused, then added quietly, "I lost my own daughter 20 years ago. Car accident. She was 16. For a long time, I kept her room exactly as she left it. Thought if I changed anything, I'd lose her all over again." Her voice softened. "Took me 5 years to understand that holding on to the past doesn't bring them back. It just keeps you from living." Natalie looked at this woman with new understanding. "What changed?" "My granddaughter was born, my son's child. And I realized I could honor my daughter by loving the living, not by freezing time." Mrs. Caldwell's eyes held decades of hard-won wisdom. That's what this family needs. Someone to show them it's possible to remember the past and still move forward. Dinner arrived at precisely 6 p.m. Mrs. Caldwell had prepared chicken, rice, vegetables. The girls sat at the table in the breakfast nook, plates untouched, eyes distant. Natalie observed for 10 minutes, saying nothing, watching. The previous nannies had probably tried everything: cajoling, bribing, games, punishments, begging. Nothing worked because they'd all approached it wrong. The girls weren't refusing to eat out of defiance. They were refusing because eating meant moving forward, and moving forward meant accepting their mother was gone. Natalie stood and walked to the kitchen. Mrs. Caldwell looked up from the dishes, eyebrows raised. "May I use the stove?" "Of course." Natalie found potatoes, butter, milk, salt. Simple ingredients. She boiled the potatoes until they were soft, drained them, and mashed them by hand. Added butter until it melted into golden pools. Just a splash of milk. A pinch of salt. Nothing fancy. Just the kind of comfort food that every child in America grew up eating. She returned to the breakfast nook with a single bowl, set it on the table between the girls, but didn't offer it to them. Instead, she got her own bowl and sat down, took a spoonful, let out a small sound of satisfaction. Willie's eyes tracked the movement of her spoon. Rose's gaze remained fixed on the window, but her head tilted slightly toward the table. Natalie took another bite, said nothing. The silence stretched. Finally, Lily spoke. "Is that for us?" "This?" Natalie gestured to her bowl. "No, this is mine. I only made enough for one." "But there's another bowl." "Oh, that one.
Natalie glanced at the bowl between them as if she'd forgotten it existed.
That's for anyone who's hungry enough to ask nicely.
Lily looked at Rose. Rose looked at Lily.
Some silent communication passed between them, years of twin language compressed into a single glance.
Lily turned back to Natalie.
Her voice came out small, almost testing. May I have some? Please?
Natalie smiled, just a little.
Of course you may.
She slid the bowl to Lily. Lily picked up her spoon with trembling fingers and took a tiny bite. Then another. Then she was eating in earnest, small sounds of pleasure escaping despite her attempts at control.
Rose watched her sister for 30 seconds before whispering, "Can I have some too?"
Natalie stood and made another bowl. This time she made two, set one in front of each girl and returned to her own meal. They ate everything. 2 complete bowls of mashed potatoes eaten in reverent silence while the chicken and rice sat untouched. From the doorway, Marcus Thornfield stood watching. Natalie didn't see him arrive, didn't hear him leave, but she felt his presence like a change in air pressure, and when she glanced up, he was gone. That night, she found him in his study at 8:47 p.m. She'd written the daily report by hand, knowing he probably expected something typed and professional, but her laptop had been sold 2 months ago to pay rent. He looked up when she knocked. "Come in." She handed him the report. He read it while she stood there. 3 paragraphs about the girls eating, their brief conversation, their body language. He set it down without comment. "They ate."
"They did."
"How?"
Natalie considered her answer. "I didn't ask them to eat.
"I just made something that felt safe and let them choose." Marcus leaned back in his chair. In the lamplight, she could see the exhaustion carved into his face. This man hadn't slept properly in months, maybe years. The other nannies tried everything. Games, rewards, consequences. Nothing worked.
Because they were trying to fix the girls. The girls aren't broken. They're grieving.
Something flashed across his face. Anger, maybe, or recognition. "You've been here 8 hours, Miss Morrison. Don't presume to understand my family."
"I don't presume to understand anything, Mr. Thornfield.
But I lost a baby 5 years ago, 20 weeks pregnant. I held her while she died, and then I buried her. And for months afterward, I couldn't eat either. Because eating meant living, and living felt like betrayal." She hadn't meant to say it, hadn't planned to reveal that piece of herself. But it was out now, hanging in the air between them like smoke. Marcus's face had gone carefully blank. "I'm sorry for your loss."
"Everyone is."
She threw his own words back at him gently.
"But sympathy doesn't change reality. Your daughters are waiting for their mother to come back. Someone needs to give them permission to stop waiting."
"And you think you're qualified to do that?"
"No."
Natalie met his eyes directly.
"I think you are. But until you're ready, I can at least make sure they eat."
She left before he could respond, climbed the stairs to her small 3rd-floor room and closed the door. Sat on the bed and felt the day crash over her in waves. 6 hours ago, she'd been standing in the snow with 70 cents and nowhere to go. Now she had a room, a job, 2 broken little girls who needed someone to care whether they lived or died. Her phone buzzed. Text from Jen. "Did you get it?" Natalie typed back. "I got it." "Thank God. How is it?" Natalie looked around the room, at the clean sheets and the functioning radiator and the door that locked. At the window showing a garden buried in snow, and beyond it, a city she'd conquered once and lost to entirely.
It's complicated.
Day 3 arrived with more snow. Natalie woke at 6,
showered in a bathroom that had hot water and water pressure, and dressed in clothes that had been washed in an actual machine instead of a sink. Small luxuries that felt like miracles.
The girls were awake when she entered their room at 7, sitting on their beds, still in nightgowns, staring at nothing. "Good morning, Lily. Good morning, Rose." No response. Natalie hadn't expected one. She sat on the floor between their beds and pulled out her notebook, started drawing without explanation. A castle made of stars, a forest where trees grew upside down, a dragon with scales that looked like flower petals. 5 minutes passed. 10. Lily's feet appeared at the edge of Natalie's peripheral vision. Small, bare feet on hardwood floor. Coming closer. Natalie kept drawing. Didn't acknowledge her. Didn't invite her closer or push her away. Rose followed 90 seconds later. Both girls sat down on either side of Natalie, close but not touching, watching the drawings take shape. After 20 minutes, Natalie slid 2 blank pages and some crayons across the floor. The girls picked them up without being asked. For an hour, they drew in complete silence. When breakfast time arrived, Mrs. Caldwell appeared in the doorway and stopped, taking in the scene. "Well," she said softly, "I'll be." The drawings revealed everything. Rose had drawn a family of 4, a tall man, a tall woman, 2 small girls. One of the women had wings sprouting from her back, detailed and careful. An angel. The other woman had red hair and held both girls' hands. Lily's drawing was simpler, but somehow more devastating. A house, rendered in shades of gray and blue. Snow falling around it. Windows dark. No people. Just an empty structure waiting for warmth that might never come. Natalie collected the drawings with reverent hands. "These are beautiful. May I keep them?" Both girls nodded. Rose almost smiled. That afternoon, Marcus came home early from work. Natalie heard his car in the driveway at 2 p.m. instead of the usual 6. He found her in the living room, where she'd built a pillow fort with the girls. They were inside it now, reading a book together in whispered voices, while Natalie held up the walls. Marcus stood in the doorway for a long moment. When Natalie glanced up, she found him staring at the fort with an expression she couldn't name. Loss, maybe. Or longing. "Mr. Thornfield, is everything all right?" "Fine." The word came out clipped. "I forgot some documents." He disappeared upstairs, returned 5 minutes later with a briefcase, paused again in the doorway. "They're playing." "They are. They haven't played in months." His voice held something between wonder and pain. Rachel used to build forts with them, every Sunday. She called it Fort Sunday. Natalie felt the weight of that information settle over her shoulders. "Would you like me to stop?" "No." The word burst out too quickly. Marcus cleared his throat. "No. Continue." He left, but Natalie saw him pause by the window, watching them through the glass, saw his shoulders shake once, quickly, before he straightened and walked to his car. Day 5 brought a discovery that changed everything. Natalie was cleaning up the girls' room while they napped, putting away books and straightening their beds. Her hand brushed against something under Lily's pillow, something hard and metal. She pulled it out. A blue tin box, the kind that might have once held cookies. The paint was chipped, the edges worn smooth with handling. Natalie knew she should put it back, respect their privacy. But something made her open it. Photographs spilled out. Rachel Thornfield in dozens of moments, young and radiant, holding newborn twins, laughing at a birthday party, sleeping in a hospital bed with an IV in her arm, bald from chemotherapy but still smiling. The last photo showed her in a garden, so thin she looked translucent,
with the girls on either side of her,
all three of them looking at the camera as if trying to memorize each other. Beneath the photos, letters, dozens of them, written in crayon and marker and pencil. Dear Mommy in heaven. Dear Mommy who is watching us. Dear Mommy who will come back soon. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper like treasure, 2 baby teeth, small and perfect and heartbreaking. That's private. Natalie's head snapped up. Both girls stood in the doorway, no longer sleepy. Lily's face had gone red with anger. Rose looked like she might cry. I'm sorry. Natalie carefully gathered the items, hands shaking. I should have asked permission. That was wrong of me. That's where Mommy lives now, Lily said, chin jutting out with defiance. In the box? Daddy says Mommy is watching us from heaven, Rose explained, her voice very small. So if we keep her things safe, she can come back to them, like breadcrumbs, so she can find her way home. Natalie's heart cracked clean through. These children, these babies, living in a fantasy because the truth was too enormous to face. She sat on the floor, still holding the box. Can I tell you what I think? Both girls hesitated, then nodded. I think your mommy loved you so much that she left pieces of that love everywhere. In this box, yes, you're right about that, but also in you, in your smiles, in how kind you are to each other, in how brave you are. Rose's lower lip trembled. But when is she coming back? The question sat in the room like a living thing. Natalie could lie, could maintain the comfortable fiction, let them keep believing in a return that would never happen. But she'd been hired to help these girls, not to enable their grief. Sweetheart, she chose her words with the care of someone diffusing a bomb. People who go to heaven don't come back to earth. Not in the way you're hoping. But they never really leave us either. They live in our memories, in our hearts, in all the love they gave us while they were here. So she's never coming back? Lily's voice broke on the last word. Never, ever? No, baby. I'm so sorry, but no. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Lily lunged forward and grabbed the box from Natalie's hands. You're lying! You're just like all the others! You don't know anything! Lily, get out! Marcus's voice from the doorway, winter cold and furious. Natalie turned and found him standing there, briefcase in hand, face carved from stone. Mr. Thornfield, get out of their room, now. Natalie stood on shaking legs. The girls clutched the box between them, both crying now, silent tears that broke her heart all over again. She walked toward the door. Marcus didn't move, forcing her to squeeze past him. She could feel his rage radiating off him in waves. How dare you? The words came out quiet, which somehow made them worse. How dare you? They need to grieve, Natalie said, keeping her voice steady even as her hands shook. They need to understand. You've been here 1 week. 1 week. Marcus's voice rose now, echoing in the hallway. You don't get to tell my daughters their mother is gone forever. You don't get to destroy the last shred of hope they have. It's not hope. It's denial. There's a difference. You know nothing about us, about what we've been through, about what it's like to watch the person you love most in the world waste away in front of you while your children ask why Mommy is so tired all the time. Natalie stood her ground, even as something in his face made her want to retreat. You're right. I don't know what that's like.
But I know what it's like to hold a child you'll never get to raise, to say goodbye before you've barely said hello. And I know that denial doesn't heal grief, it just freezes it in place.
Marcus stepped closer. You know nothing about losing someone. I lost a baby. The words came out sharp as broken glass. 5 years ago. 20 weeks pregnant. Complications. They induced labor, and I held her for 2 hours while she died. Her name was Emma, and she weighed 1 pound and 3 ounces. And I buried her in a cemetery in Cambridge, with a headstone shaped like a lamb. Marcus froze. The color drained from his face. So yes, Mr. Thornfield, I know about loss. I know about grief. And I know those girls need to cry before they can heal. They're waiting for permission. Permission that has to come from you. You're fired. His voice came out flat, final. Pack your things and leave. Marcus, Mr. Thornfield, and it's not a discussion. He turned and walked into the girl's room, closing the door in her face. Natalie stood in the hallway for a long moment. Then she climbed to the 3rd floor on legs that barely held her weight. She owned so little that packing took 8 minutes. 2 duffel bags, some clothes, her notebook, a toothbrush. The sum total of a life that had once included corner offices and company cars and a future that stretched out like a highway. The girls found her as she zipped the 2nd bag. They'd stopped crying, but their faces were blotchy, eyes swollen. Where are you going? Lily's voice came out very small. Natalie knelt. I have to leave, sweethearts. Because of Mommy's box? Rose's chin trembled. We're sorry. We didn't mean to get mad. Well, stop talking about her, Lily added desperately. We'll be good. We promise. Please don't leave. Natalie pulled them both into a hug. They clung to her with the kind of desperation that came from losing too many people already. This isn't your fault. Not even a little bit. You're the best, bravest, most wonderful girls I've ever met. Then why are you leaving? Because your father is too scared to face his own grief. Because this house is drowning in loss and no one knows how to swim. Because I can't save you if he won't let me try. Sometimes grown-ups have to make hard decisions, she said instead. But I want you to know something. Can you listen very carefully? Both girls nodded, tears streaming down their faces. You are allowed to miss your mommy forever. That's not wrong or bad. Missing her means you loved her very much. But you're also allowed to be happy, to laugh, to play, to eat food you like and make new friends and grow up into amazing people. Your mommy would want that for you, more than anything. She pulled out her notebook and tore out 2 pages, wrote quickly words that came from the deepest part of her heart. To Lily, you are allowed to miss your mommy forever. That means you loved her well. You are also allowed to be happy. Both things can be true at the same time. You are so brave and so kind and so deeply loved. Never forget that. To Rose, being sad doesn't mean being broken. You're the bravest girl I know. It's okay to cry. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to heal. Your mommy's love is still with you in every smile, every laugh, every moment of joy you allow yourself. You are so strong. Never doubt it. She folded the letters and placed one on each of their pillows. Then she kissed the tops of their heads and picked up her bags. Mrs. Caldwell waited at the bottom of the stairs, face setting grim lines. I'll drive you. To the bus station, please. They rode in silence. When Mrs. Caldwell pulled up to the curb, she turned to Natalie with eyes that held 40 years of witnessing family tragedy. You did the right thing.
Those girls needed to hear it. Doesn't feel right. Never does. Mrs. Caldwell pulled out her wallet and extracted 2 crisp $100 bills. Take it. Don't argue. Natalie wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some shred of pride, but she had $3.70 and nowhere to go. Thank you. You'll land on your feet. Women like us always do. Natalie climbed out of the car and watched Mrs. Caldwell drive away. The bus station loomed behind her, full of people with destinations and plans and futures that made sense. She pulled out her phone. Jen's number was already pulled up when she heard the first sob from inside the Thornfield estate. Through the falling snow, she could see the upstairs window, 2 small faces pressed against the glass, crying for another person they'd lost. Natalie closed her eyes, turned away, walked into the bus station with $303.70 in her pocket, and no idea what came next. Behind her, in a house made of marble and grief, Marcus Thornfield stood in his office, holding a blue tin box. He opened Rachel's perfume, the one the girls had saved with religious care, and breathed in the scent of gardenias and loss. Then, for the first time in 18 months, Marcus broke. He sank to the floor beside his desk, the perfume bottle clutched in one hand, and sobbed. Great, wrenching gasps that tore out of him like they'd been buried under pressure for too long. He cried for Rachel, for his daughters, for the man he used to be before cancer turned his world into a waiting room and then a funeral, and then this endless frozen after. Upstairs, Lily found the letter on her pillow, read it 3 times, then climbed into Rose's bed and held her sister while they both cried themselves to sleep. Mrs. Caldwell returned to an empty kitchen and made tea no one would drink. And in the bus station, Natalie Morrison sat on a hard plastic chair, her 2 duffel bags at her feet, and tried to figure out which shelter would take her in at 9 p.m. on a Thursday in December. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Miss Morrison? A woman's voice, crisp, professional. This is Barbara Chen from First National Bank. I'm calling about your account. Natalie's stomach dropped. I know I'm overdrawn. I'll make a payment as soon as... No, Miss Morrison. I'm calling because your account shows a deposit. $47,000 from Thornfield Industries. I wanted to verify this wasn't an error before processing. The bus station went silent. Or maybe that was just the blood rushing in Natalie's ears. Say that again? $47,000, deposited 30 minutes ago. Memo line says, payment in full. Do you want me to process it or investigate for fraud? $47,000, the exact amount of her combined debts. Student loans, medical bills from Emma, the last month's rent she'd never paid on her apartment. Every creditor, every collection agency, every sleepless night adding up numbers that never got smaller. Paid in full. Miss Morrison? Process it. The words came out like someone else was speaking. It's not fraud. She hung up, stared at her phone. Then she was running, bags forgotten in the bus station, sprinting through snow in shoes with holes in the soles. The Thornfield estate was dark when she arrived, every window black except for one, Marcus's study on the 2nd floor. She pressed the intercom. No answer. Pressed again. Held it down. The gate buzzed. Natalie ran up the driveway, slipping on ice, catching herself on frozen hedges. The front door swung open before she reached it. Marcus stood in the entrance, still in his suit, eyes red-rimmed but dry now. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't name. What did you do?
Natalie demanded, breathless from running and shock and too many emotions to separate. I paid a debt. That's not your debt to pay. I fired you without cause. I owe you severance. $47,000 is not severance. That's... She broke off, searching for words. That's charity. That's pity. That's you trying to assuage your guilt for it's an apology. Marcus's voice cut through her tirade. And a bribe. Natalie stopped. What? Come back. 2 words, but the way he said them carried the weight of everything unsaid. The girls need you. I need... He stopped. Started again. I need someone who won't let me hide. Someone who will tell the truth, even when it destroys me. Someone who loves my daughters enough to break their hearts so they can heal. You fired me. I was wrong. You said I had no right to talk about Rachel. I was wrong about that, too. Marcus's hands clenched at his sides. I've been wrong about everything. I thought protecting them from pain was the same as protecting them. But you were right. They're not healing. They're freezing. And I'm the one holding them in place because if they move forward, it means Rachel is really gone. The snow fell between them. Natalie's breath came out in clouds of white. I can't come back just because you feel guilty. Then don't. Come back because those girls upstairs read your letters and cried themselves to sleep holding each other. Come back because they need someone who understands that grief and love aren't opposites. Come back because... His voice cracked. Because I spent 18 months being numb, and you made me feel again. And it's terrifying, but it's also the first time I've felt alive since Rachel died. Natalie looked up at the house, at the window where 2 small faces had pressed against glass, at the life she'd stumbled into and been thrown out of, and now was being pulled back toward like gravity. I won't lie to them. Not about Rachel, not about grief, not about anything. I know. And I won't follow your rules if they're hurting those girls. I know. And if you fire me again, I'm keeping the $47,000. Something that might have been a smile touched Marcus's face. Fair enough. Natalie walked past him into the house. Warmth enveloped her like an embrace. She could hear the furnace humming, smell the lingering scent of dinner, see the photographs on the walls of a family that used to be whole. One more thing, she said, turning back to him. I don't want your money. I want a partnership. Real decisions, real input, not just hired help following orders. Marcus closed the door against the snow. Done. And therapy. For all of us. You, me, the girls. Doctor. Bennett can recommend someone. All right. And I'm moving to the 2nd floor, closer to the girls. There's a guest room next to theirs. Natalie looked at him. Really looked. Past the expensive suit and the grief-carved face to the man underneath. The father who loved his daughters enough to swallow his pride. The husband still mourning a wife he'd never get back. The broken person trying to find a way forward. This isn't going to be easy, she said quietly. Nothing worth doing ever is. Outside, the snow fell harder, covering the city in white silence. Inside the Thornfield estate, a man and a woman stood in an entrance hall made of marble and loss and the first fragile shoots of something that might eventually become hope. Upstairs, 2 little girls slept with letters pressed against their hearts, dreaming of dragons and ice princesses and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the long winter was finally beginning to thaw. The phone rang at 6:04 a.m., jarring Natalie from the first real sleep she'd had in weeks. She fumbled for it in the darkness of Jen's guest room, where she'd returned after leaving the Thornfield estate the night before, too overwhelmed to stay despite Marcus's offer. His name glowed on the screen. She let it ring 4 times, her thumb hovering over the decline button. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, to protect herself from the chaos of that house and those girls and that man who looked at her like she was both salvation and destruction. On the 5th ring, she answered. Rose won't eat breakfast. No greeting, no acknowledgement of the $47,000 or the emotional devastation of yesterday or the fact that she'd run from his house at 9 p.m. and hadn't come back. Get Mrs. Henderson to help. The new nanny, presumably, the 10th in 18 months. She wants you. I want you. Please. The silence stretched between them like a tightrope. Natalie could hear her own heartbeat, feel Jen stirring in the next room, sense the weight of a decision that would alter the trajectory of her entire life. I'll be there in 30 minutes. But Marcus? Yes? This time, we do it my way. No rules, no contracts. We figure it out together, or not at all. She heard him exhale, long and shaky. Okay. Natalie arrived to find the girls in the breakfast nook, plates of perfectly prepared eggs and toast untouched. They looked up when she entered, and the relief that flooded their faces nearly broke her. You came back, Lily whispered. You came back! Rose scrambled out of her chair and ran, throwing herself at Natalie with the force of someone who'd already lost too much. Natalie caught her, then Lily, kneeling to hold them both. I missed you too much to stay away. Marcus stood in the doorway, coffee cup forgotten in his hand. Something shifted in his expression when he saw them together, some calculation or realization that he quickly masked. From now on, Natalie said, gently extricating herself from the girl's grip, we all eat together. No exceptions. Including you, Marcus. I have work. The work can wait 20 minutes. She watched him wrestle with the boundary she'd just set. Old Marcus would have shut it down immediately, reasserted control. But something had changed in the 18 hours since he'd broken down in his study. He pulled out a chair and sat. The eggs were simple. The toast was ordinary. But the 4 of them eating together felt revolutionary. Lily kept glancing at her father as if expecting him to vanish. Rose ate with focused determination, like she was proving something. Marcus cleared his throat. How is everyone's sleep? The girls exchanged glances. Okay, they said in unison. Did you read the letters Miss Nat left you? Lily nodded, suddenly shy. We read them lots of times. What did they say? Rose looked down at her plate. That it's okay to miss Mommy, and it's okay to be happy. Both at the same time. Marcus's knuckles went white around his coffee cup. Natalie watched him struggle with the truth of it, the permission his daughters needed that he'd been unable to give. That's right, he managed. Both things can be true. After breakfast, while the girls got dressed, Marcus followed Natalie to the second-floor guest room where she was unpacking her meager belongings. I spoke with Dr. Bennett this morning. He leaned against the door frame, maintaining careful distance. She recommended a family therapist, Dr. Catherine Walsh. She has availability starting next week. Natalie pulled clothes from her duffel bag, acutely aware of how little she owned. 2 pairs of jeans, some sweaters, everything worn and faded. For all of us? She suggested individual sessions first, then family sessions. I made appointments for the girls on Tuesday and Thursday. You and I would go on Mondays and Wednesdays. Separate sessions? Dr. Walsh said it would be more effective, at least initially. Marcus shifted his weight. Natalie, about yesterday, we don't have to talk about it. I think we do. He stepped into the room, and suddenly the space felt much smaller. I was cruel, lashing out because you said things I wasn't ready to hear. Things I needed to hear. Natalie folded a sweater with meticulous care. You were protecting your daughters. I was protecting myself. There's a difference. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a check. This is the first week's salary, $2,500, plus a signing bonus for the distress I caused. She looked at the check, $5,000. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's compensation for emotional labor above and beyond standard childcare. His mouth quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. Apparently that's what Dr. Bennett called it when I told her what happened. She said you deserve hazard pay for dealing with me. Despite everything, Natalie laughed. She's not wrong. The moment hung between them, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Marcus cleared his throat and stepped back toward the door. There's one more thing. I'd like to discuss the business proposition. EduPlay 2.0. Marcus, I can't. Just hear me out. Not now. Tonight, after the girls are asleep. I have a proposal that I think addresses your concerns about dependency and control. He paused. I may be emotionally unavailable, but I'm a decent businessman. And I believe in your vision. Before she could respond, Lily called from down the hall. Miss Nat, can you help me with my shoes? Marcus's eyes held hers for a moment longer. Then he was gone, footsteps echoing down the hardwood corridor. The morning unfolded in small domestic miracles. Natalie taught the girls how to scramble eggs, guiding their hands on the whisk, praising their gentle folds. Marcus appeared halfway through, drawn by the sound of laughter, and stood watching from the kitchen entrance. Daddy, look! Rose held up the spatula triumphantly. We're making breakfast! I see that. Lily tugged on his sleeve. Do you want to help? Natalie saw the panic flash across his face. This man who ran a multi-million-dollar company couldn't remember the last time he'd cooked anything more complicated than coffee. I don't want to get in the way. You won't, Natalie said, extending a hand. Come on, I'll show you. She guided his hands over the bowl, demonstrating the proper angle for whisking. His fingers were stiff at first, uncertain, but gradually he relaxed, finding a rhythm. The girls crowded around him, offering advice and encouragement in equal measure. When Natalie's hands settled over his to correct his grip, they both froze. The contact lasted 2 seconds longer than necessary, her fingers warm against his, before she pulled away. Marcus cleared his throat. Like this? Perfect. They ate the scrambled eggs together, slightly overcooked, but made with care. Rose declared them the best eggs in the world. Lily insisted they cook together every morning. Marcus agreed before thinking about what that meant for his schedule. Later, after the breakfast dishes were done, Natalie found him in his study reviewing contracts. You agreed to cook every morning. He looked up, reading glasses perched on his nose. I did, didn't I? Your 7 a.m. conference calls can be moved to 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Or I can learn to delegate better. He set down his pen. I've spent 18 months using work as an excuse to avoid my daughters. Dr. Bennett made that very clear in our phone call this morning. Apparently, I've been practicing avoidance as a coping mechanism. Therapy speak already? She gave me several articles to read. They were illuminating. Marcus removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Did you know that children model their grief behaviors on their primary caregiver? The girls weren't just mourning Rachel, they were mirroring my complete shutdown. Natalie sat in the chair across from his desk. You're being hard on yourself. I'm being honest, there's a difference. He pulled up something on his computer and turned the screen toward her. This is what I wanted to show you. It was a business plan, professionally formatted with financial projections and market analysis and competitive positioning. EduPlay 2.0, it said across the top. Below that, in smaller letters, a partnership between Morrison and Thornfield Ventures. I had my team put this together last night. 50-50 equity split. Both of us on the board. Equal say in all major decisions. I provide the capital and business infrastructure. You provide the vision and product development. He scrolled down to the financials. $250,000 seed funding. 6-month runway. If we hit our milestones, I can connect you with Series A investors. Natalie stared at the numbers. This is insane. This is smart business. Your first version of EduPlay reached Series A before the funding fell through. You know the market. You know the product. You just need a partner who won't pull the rug out from under you. And if it fails again? Then we fail together. But at least you won't be homeless. He pulled up another document. This is the partnership agreement. Read it. Have a lawyer review it. Take all the time you need. Natalie scrolled through the contract looking for the catch. But it was exactly what he'd said. Equal partners, equal control, equal risk. Why are you doing this? Marcus leaned back in his chair, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. Because for 18 months I've been going through the motions. Building a company, making money, checking boxes. But I haven't built anything that matters. And you... He stopped, started again. You lost everything, and you're still fighting. Still creating. Still believing in something bigger than your own pain. That's worth investing in. The afternoon brought rain instead of snow, a January thaw that turned the world gray and dripping. Natalie worked with the girls on a puzzle in the living room while Marcus took calls in his study. Every so often she'd glance up to find him watching them through the doorway, his expression unreadable. At 4 p.m., Mrs. Caldwell appeared with cookies fresh from the oven. Mr. Thornfield asked me to make these. He said they were Rachel's recipe. The girls' faces lit up. Mommy's chocolate chip cookies. She used to make them every Sunday, Mrs. Caldwell explained, setting the plate down. Taught me the recipe herself. Said the secret was browning the butter first. Lily picked up a cookie with reverent hands. Can we talk about Mommy now? The question hung in the air. Natalie looked toward the study, where Marcus had gone very still. Of course you can, sweetheart. Daddy says it makes him too sad. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Natalie watched him struggle with the truth of his daughter's words. I was wrong about that, too. He came into the room and sat on the floor beside them, suit pants be damned. Tell me about your favorite memory of Mommy. Rose didn't hesitate. When she made us breakfast in bed on our birthday. With the special pancakes shaped like hearts. She sang that funny song, Lily added. The one about the birthday princess? She made that up, Marcus said quietly. Completely improvised it in the hospital the day after you were born. Terrible rhymes, ridiculous melody. But she sang it every single birthday. Do you remember it? Natalie asked. Every word. Will you teach us? Rose looked at her father with such hope it was painful. So we can sing it too? Marcus's throat worked. Yeah, I can do that. They spent the next hour talking about Rachel. Not the sick Rachel, the dying Rachel, but the living one. The woman who danced in the kitchen and built elaborate blanket forts and once convinced Marcus to let her adopt 3 cats from the shelter, even though he was allergic. What happened to the cats? Natalie asked. Still have them. They live in the sunroom.
I take allergy medication daily. Marcus almost smiled.
Rachel said suffering for love builds character. When the girls went upstairs to play, Marcus stayed on the floor beside Natalie. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only happens between people who've seen each other break. "Thank you," he said eventually.
For what?
"For giving me permission to remember her. I've been so focused on moving forward that I forgot it's okay to look back sometimes." Natalie turned to face him.
Grief isn't linear. It's a spiral.
You keep coming back to the same pain, but from different angles. Eventually, the spiral widens and the returns become less frequent. But you never fully escape it.
Dr. Bennett told you that?
My therapist, after Emma died. Took me 3 years to understand what she meant. Natalie picked up a cookie, studying the chocolate chips like they held answers.
I used to think healing meant forgetting, but it doesn't. It means learning to carry the weight differently.
Marcus reached for the cookie plate, his hand brushing hers. They both stilled.
The contact lasted barely a second, but Natalie felt it in her chest, a sharp pull of awareness. I should check on the girls, she said, standing abruptly. That evening, after dinner, after baths, after stories and songs and the elaborate bedtime routine that the girls had developed, Natalie found Marcus waiting in his study. Ready to talk business? She settled into the chair across from his desk.
I read the partnership agreement, all 47 pages. And? It's generous, almost too generous. There has to be a catch. Marcus poured 2 glasses of whiskey from the decanter on his shelf, handed her one without asking if she wanted it. The catch is that I'm difficult to work with. I micromanage. I have control issues. I don't delegate well, and I assume I'm right about everything. Brutal self-assessment. Also accurate. He raised his glass. But I'm working on it. Dr. Walsh will have her hands full. Natalie sipped the whiskey, feeling it burn down her throat.
I need one thing before I sign.
Name it.
I want to meet Dr. Walsh first. Not in therapy, just coffee. I need to know she understands what she's walking into with this family. Something flickered across Marcus's face.
What am I walking into?
A widow who's afraid to love again. 2 children trapped in magical thinking.
And a woman who's terrified of depending on anyone because the last time she did, it destroyed her. Natalie met his eyes.
We're all broken in different ways. Dr. Walsh needs to be equipped for that. Marcus set down his glass.
Fair enough. I'll arrange it.
The weekend brought a shift in household dynamics. Marcus canceled his Saturday golf game and his Sunday board meeting. Instead, he built a pillow fort with the girls that took over half the living room.
Natalie watched from the kitchen, pretending to help Mrs. Caldwell with meal prep, while actually studying the way Marcus's face softened when his daughters laughed. Sunday afternoon, Eleanor Thornfield arrived unannounced. Natalie was in the garden with the girls, teaching them to identify winter birds at the feeder, when Mrs. Caldwell appeared at the door.
Mrs. Thornfield is here. The elder Mrs. Thornfield.
The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Natalie ushered the girls inside, their cheeks pink from cold, and found Eleanor in the living room inspecting the pillow fort with visible disdain. She was exactly what Natalie expected. 70 years of Boston aristocracy in a Chanel suit, fur coat draped over one arm, posture that could cut glass. Her gaze tracked over Natalie from worn boots to pulled-back hair, cataloging and dismissing in a single sweep. So you're the new nanny. Not a question, an assessment. I'm Natalie Morrison. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Thornfield. Eleanor's handshake was brief and cold. Morrison.
Any relation to the Morrisons of Beacon Hill?
I'm from Somerville.
I see. 2 words that contained volumes of judgment. And your family background? Marcus appeared from his study, tension written in every line of his body. Mother, you didn't call. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd check on my granddaughters. Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes.
Make sure they're being properly cared for. The girls had frozen in the doorway, uncertainty replacing their earlier joy. Eleanor opened her arms, and they went to her dutifully, accepting her kisses with the resigned patience of children who knew affection came with conditions. Lunch was excruciating. Mrs. Caldwell had prepared a beautiful meal, but Eleanor found fault with everything. The soup was too salty. The bread wasn't from the right bakery. The salad greens were wilting. Her interrogation of Natalie was surgical. Where did you attend university, Miss Morrison? Boston University. And your degree was in? Developmental psychology, with a minor in computer science. Eleanor's eyebrows rose fractionally. How eclectic. And after graduation? I founded an education technology company, EduPlay Incorporated. We developed learning applications for elementary-age children. Founded. Eleanor seized on the word. Past tense. What happened to this company? Natalie felt Marcus tense beside her. It filed for bankruptcy 8 months ago. Our primary investor pulled funding after a regulatory change affected our market projections. So you lost other people's money? Mother. Marcus's voice held a warning. It's a reasonable question, Marcus. If this woman is caring for my granddaughters, I should understand her background. Eleanor turned back to Natalie. How much did investors lose? Approximately $3 million, which I attempted to recover by using my personal savings to pay employee severance and creditor debts. I left myself with nothing to try to make others whole. Eleanor sipped her wine. How noble. And how did you come to be employed here? I applied for the position. Marcus interviewed me and decided I was qualified. Decided or desperate? Eleanor's smile was razor sharp. 9 nannies in 18 months. The girls are notoriously difficult. Any warm body would do at this point. That's enough. Marcus set down his fork with enough force to make the china rattle. Natalie is not any warm body. She's gotten the girls to eat, to sleep, to play. She's accomplished more in 2 weeks than the previous 9 managed combined. By coddling them, I've heard about your little grief sessions, your permission to wallow in sadness. Rachel wouldn't have wanted that. Marcus's face went white. You have no idea what Rachel would have wanted. I knew her for 10 years, Marcus. She was strong, resilient. She wouldn't want you replacing her with the first woman desperate enough to take this job. The words hit Natalie like a slap. She stood, chair scraping against hardwood. Excuse me, I need to check on the girls. She made it to the second-floor bathroom before the shaking started, gripped the sink and stared at her reflection. Desperate. That's what Eleanor saw. A desperate woman clinging to a job, a house, a family that wasn't hers. The door opened. Marcus slipped inside and closed it behind him. Don't listen to her. She's not wrong. Natalie's voice came out unsteady. I was desperate. I am desperate. I had $73 to my name when you hired me. So what? Desperate doesn't mean unqualified. It doesn't negate everything you've accomplished here. I'm the help, Marcus. The hired help with a bankruptcy record and no prospects. Your mother is right to question my presence in this house. Marcus moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the muscle jumping in his jaw. My mother is terrified, not of you, of losing control, of watching me move forward when she's still frozen in grief herself. That doesn't make her wrong about me. Doesn't make her right either. He reached out, then seemed to think better of it, hand dropping back to his side. You're not just the help. You're the person who got my daughters to laugh again, who made me remember that life isn't just obligation and work, He stopped abruptly. Whatever he'd been about to say dissolved in the space between them. Natalie's phone buzzed. Text from Jen. How's the billionaire treating you? She almost laughed. Billionaire. If Jen only knew how complicated the reality was. The meeting with Dr. Walsh happened at a cafe in Cambridge, neutral territory, far from the Thornfield estate. She was younger than Natalie expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and the kind of presence that made people instinctively trust her. Thank you for meeting me, Natalie said, settling into the chair across from her. Marcus said it was important to you. I appreciate someone who does their due diligence before committing to therapy. Dr. Walsh stirred sugar into her coffee. What did you want to know? Whether you understand what you're getting into with this family. Marcus is grieving a wife he'll never get over. The girls are trapped in a fantasy that their mother will return, and I'm a stranger who wandered into their lives at the worst possible moment. And you? Dr. Walsh asked. What are you trapped in? The question landed like a punch. Natalie found herself telling this stranger things she'd barely admitted to herself. The bankruptcy, the miscarriage, the hospitalization, the slow, painful crawl back to something resembling functionality. I'm terrified, she admitted, that I'm using this family to avoid dealing with my own broken pieces, that I'm going to hurt those girls, that I'm going to fall in love with a life that isn't mine and lose everything again when it inevitably falls apart. Dr. Walsh listened without judgment. When Natalie finished, she said, Here's what I hear. You're scared of attachment because attachment led to loss before. Marcus is scared of moving forward because moving forward means leaving Rachel behind. The girls are scared of forgetting their mother. You're all fundamentally afraid of the same thing, loving something and losing it. So what do? We work through it, slowly, carefully, with the understanding that healing isn't linear and setbacks are inevitable. Dr. Walsh leaned forward. But Natalie, you need to understand something. I can't fix this family for you. I can give you tools and insights and safe space to process. But the actual work of choosing to stay, of building trust, of risking attachment again, that's on you. Natalie left the cafe feeling simultaneously more hopeful and more terrified than when she'd arrived. She had tools now, a plan, a therapist who seemed equipped to handle the chaos. But the fear remained, sharp and insistent beneath her ribs. That evening, Marcus presented her with a revised partnership agreement, 50-50 equity as before, but he'd added a clause. If the personal relationship between them ever became untenable, either party could buy out the other at fair market value, ensuring the business survived even if their working relationship didn't. You thought of everything, Natalie said, scanning the new pages. I thought about what would make you feel safe. This way, even if the worst happens, you still have financial security and something you built. Natalie looked up from the contract. What's the worst that could happen? Marcus met her eyes. I could fall in love with you. You could decide you don't want to be part of this family. The girls could get hurt. My mother could make our lives hell. Pick your catastrophe. Those are all real possibilities. Yes. Marcus took the contract back, set it aside. But so is the possibility that we make this work. That we build something good from all this broken. That's what I'm betting on. Natalie thought about the girls upstairs, probably listening through heating vents like children always did. Thought about Mrs. Caldwell, who'd seen 40 years of family drama and still chose to stay. Thought about Eleanor's investigation and the partnership agreement and the way Marcus looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching. Okay. Okay, you'll sign? Okay, I'll try. Really try. Not just survive from day to day, but actually invest in this. The business, the girls, whatever this is between us. She gestured between them, at the space charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Marcus smiled, real and genuine for the first time since she'd met him. That's all I'm asking for. A real try. They shook hands like business partners, but when his thumb brushed across her knuckles, lingering just a moment too long, they both felt it. The shift. The acknowledgement that this was about more than contracts and equity splits and professional boundaries. Upstairs, Lily whispered to Rose through the heating vent.
Did Miss Nat say yes? I think so. Good. I like her. She makes Daddy smile. Do you think Mommy would like her too?
A long pause. Then Lily, with the wisdom of someone who'd thought about this a lot, said,
I think Mommy would be happy that Daddy's happy. That's what love means.
Rose considered this.
Can you love two people? Mommy and Miss Nat? Yeah, I think maybe you can.
They fell asleep holding hands, the way they always did. But for the first time in 18 months, they didn't cry themselves to sleep first. Progress, slow and painful and real. The following weeks settled into a rhythm. Mornings began with the four of them cooking together, Marcus slowly learning to crack eggs without shells everywhere. Therapy sessions started, Marcus on Mondays and Wednesdays, the girls on Tuesdays and Thursdays, family sessions on Fridays. Dr. Walsh proved to be exactly what they needed, patient but direct, empathetic but challenging. In Marcus's third session, he finally talked about the night Rachel died, how he'd been at a board meeting when the hospital called, how he'd arrived to find her unconscious, the aneurysm having struck without warning, how he'd held her hand while machines beeped and doctors spoke in hushed tones about brain death and organ donation. I never got to say goodbye, he told Dr. Walsh, tears streaming down his face for the second time in 20 years. She was just gone. And I was supposed to go home and tell our daughters that Mommy wasn't coming back. What did you tell them? That she was watching over them from heaven? That she'd always be with them? Marcus's voice broke. I couldn't tell them the truth. That she was gone and never coming back, and I had no idea how to be both parents. So you froze, Dr. Walsh said gently. You maintained the fantasy for them because you needed it too. Yes. And now Natalie is asking you to let go of that fantasy. She's asking me to move forward, to let the girls move forward. And it feels like abandoning Rachel all over again. Dr. Walsh leaned forward. Marcus, I'm going to share something Rachel's oncologist told me when I called to get background for our sessions. She said Rachel spent her last months of lucidity planning for your future. She recorded videos for the girls' birthdays. She wrote letters. She made Mrs. Caldwell promise to teach you her cookie recipe. She chose her own funeral music specifically because she knew it would make you smile through the tears. Marcus looked up, shocked. How do you know that? Because Dr. Bennett sent me Rachel's medical files with your permission. There's a note from the palliative care team. Rachel told them, and I quote, "My husband will try to turn himself into a monument to grief. Don't let him. Make sure he lives." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. She said that? She knew you, Marcus. She knew you'd struggle. and she did everything she could to give you permission to move forward. Dr. Walsh paused. The question is, are you ready to accept that permission? Marcus sat in silence for a long moment. Then, I think I'm falling in love with Natalie, and I don't know if I'm allowed to feel that. Who would you need permission from? Rachel, my mother, myself? Marcus laughed bitterly. Take your pick. You have Rachel's permission. She gave it explicitly. Your mother's opinion is her own grief-talking, which leaves you. Dr. Walsh met his eyes. Marcus, you've been in survival mode for 18 months. What would it look like to actually live again? That conversation changed something. The next family session, Marcus was different, more present, more willing to engage with the girls' questions about Natalie's role in their lives. Is Miss Nat going to be our new mommy? Rose asked with the bluntness of 5-year-olds. Marcus didn't deflect. I don't know yet, sweetheart. Miss Nat and I are still figuring out what our relationship is. But I can tell you this. No one will ever replace your mommy. She was special and unique, and we'll always love her. But we can love Miss Nat too? Lily asked carefully. Yes, love doesn't run out. You can love your mommy and also love Miss Nat. Both things can be true. Dr. Walsh smiled. That's beautiful, Marcus. Where did you learn that? From Natalie, he admitted. She told the girls that after I fired her, that missing their mother and being happy could both be true at the same time. The business partnership officially launched in late February. The press release went out. Former EduPlay CEO Natalie Morrison partners with Thornfield Industries to relaunch educational platform. TechCrunch picked it up, then Boston Business Journal, then Forbes. Natalie did 3 interviews in 1 week, each time careful to frame it as a true partnership, not a rescue. Marcus stayed in the background, letting her have the spotlight, but his support was evident in every carefully negotiated contract, every connection to potential investors, every late-night strategy session at the kitchen table. They were building something real, together. But then, 8 weeks into this new normal, everything shifted. It started with a phone call Marcus received during a family dinner. He glanced at the caller ID, frowned, and excused himself. 10 minutes later, he returned, looking pale. What's wrong? Natalie asked. That was Graham, my brother. He's also my lawyer. Marcus's jaw was tight. My mother has hired a private investigator. The room went cold. To investigate what? But Natalie already knew. Your bankruptcy, your hospitalization, your relationship with me. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. She's building a case. A case for what? I don't know yet. But Graham says we need to be prepared. She's gathering ammunition for something. That night, Natalie couldn't sleep. She lay in the second-floor guest room, listening to the house settle, and felt the fragile peace they'd built begin to crack. At 2 a.m., she gave up and went to the kitchen for tea. Marcus was already there, laptop open, papers spread across the table. Can't sleep either? He looked up, and in the dim light of the kitchen, he looked younger somehow, vulnerable. Drafting a letter to my mother. 7th version. What are you trying to say? That she needs to stop? That her interference is damaging? That if she continues down this path, there will be consequences? He closed the laptop. But I'm trying to say it without burning bridges entirely. She's still the girl's grandmother. Natalie filled the kettle, moving around the kitchen with growing familiarity. What if she's right? What if I am a liability? Then we deal with it. Together. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I called Graham this afternoon. He's reviewing the legal situation. The legal situation? Whether Eleanor has grounds for any kind of custody challenge. Graham says it's unlikely. She'd need to prove the home is unsafe, which she can't. But I want to be prepared. Marcus rubbed his eyes. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this. I walked into it with my eyes open. Did you? He studied her across the kitchen. When you took this job, you were desperate and homeless. You would have agreed to anything. That's not informed consent. The kettle whistled. Natalie poured hot water over tea bags, buying time to compose her thoughts. Are you saying you took advantage of me? I'm saying the power dynamic was unequal from the start. You needed this job to survive. I had all the leverage. And now? Now you have $47,000 in the bank and a partnership offer that makes you my equal. The dynamic has shifted, which means you need to make an actual choice. Stay because you want to, not because you have to. Natalie brought 2 mugs to the table, sat across from him. What if I stay for the wrong reasons? What would be the wrong reasons? Comfort? Security? The fantasy of belonging to something stable. She wrapped her hands around the mug, seeking warmth. I've been alone for so long. The idea of family, even someone else's family, is intoxicating. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Would it help if I admitted I want you to stay for equally complicated reasons? Like what? You make this house feel less like a mausoleum. You make my daughters laugh. You challenge me to be better than the shell I've become. He paused. And when you're here, I feel less alone too, which terrifies me. The admission hung between them like a live wire. Natalie knew she should say something, diffuse the tension, retreat to safer ground. Instead, she just sat there, holding her tea, looking at this man who'd somehow become central to her life in the span of 8 weeks. We're a mess, she said finally. Catastrophically. Marcus almost smiled. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we're supposed to be a mess together while we figure it out. Together. Natalie tested the word. I'm not good at together. I'm better at alone. Me too. But alone hasn't been working out so well for either of us. They drank their tea in comfortable silence. Outside, snow began to fall again, the weather unable to decide if winter was ending or just beginning. When Natalie finally went back to bed at 3 a.m., she found a note slipped under her door. Marcus's handwriting, precise and controlled even when informal. Read the partnership agreement again. Really read it. Every clause protects your independence while giving you stability. I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to build something with you. There's a difference. Meh. She read the agreement again, all 47 pages. This time she saw it clearly. He'd structured it to make her truly equal, not just nominally. Decision-making power, financial independence, even a buyout clause if she ever wanted to leave and take her half of the company. He wasn't building a cage. He was building a foundation. And that scared her more than anything. 2 weeks later, on a Wednesday evening in early March, Marcus came home early. Natalie was in the kitchen helping Mrs. Caldwell prepare dinner when he walked in, his face unreadable. We need to talk. All of us. They gathered in the living room, Marcus, Natalie, Mrs. Caldwell, and Graham, who'd been asked to join them. Marcus held an envelope. This arrived today, by courier. He didn't need to say more. Natalie saw it in his face, in the way his hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Emergency petition for custody evaluation. Petitioner, Eleanor Thornfield. The world tilted. Mrs. Caldwell made a small sound of distress. Graham's face went professionally blank. Natalie couldn't breathe. Marcus read aloud. Grounds, unstable home environment, unqualified caregiver with documented mental health history, risk to minors, Lily and Rose Thornfield. He looked up, eyes finding Natalie's across the room. She's going after custody. Court date in 30 days. And just like that, the fragile peace they'd built shattered into 1,000 pieces. The custody petition sat on Marcus's desk like a bomb, each page a carefully constructed weapon designed to destroy everything they'd built. Natalie read it 3 times, each pass revealing new cruelty. Eleanor's lawyers had done their homework. Every bankruptcy filing, every medical record from her hospitalization, photos of her sleeping in her car that could only have come from a private investigator. Petitioner submits that Miss Morrison, despite lacking formal child care credentials and possessing a documented history of severe mental health crises, has inserted herself into a vulnerable family unit with alarming speed. Graham Thornfield set down his copy and looked at his brother with professional assessment. She's going nuclear. Everything here paints you as unstable, and Natalie as a gold digger. What are our chances? Marcus asked. 60-40 in our favor. Judge Morrison values stability. Eleanor's team will argue Natalie represents instability. Graham looked at Natalie. We need to flip the narrative. Accelerate the EduPlay 2.0 launch. Show you're a serious businesswoman, not someone desperate for security. That's 3 weeks away, Natalie said. The product isn't ready. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to exist. Graham made notes. Second pillar, testimony. Dr. Walsh, school principal. Dr. Bennett from Chicago. Third, are you two romantically involved? Marcus and Natalie exchanged glances. Not yet. Then don't be. Not until after the hearing. Eleanor's watching. Natalie felt something twist in her chest. Weeks of growing closer, late-night conversations, hands brushing during dinner. All of it had to stop. 30 days, she said. We can manage. The girls found out that evening. Lily appeared while they reviewed documents. Are they taking us away from Daddy? Natalie knelt beside her. No, sweetheart. We heard about court, Rose said from the doorway. And Grandma Eleanor. Marcus started to speak, but Natalie touched his arm. Your grandmother loves you, but she's worried Daddy isn't making good decisions about who takes care of you. So judges will have a meeting to decide what's best. Will you have to leave? Lily whispered. I hope not, but I can't promise. Both girls launched themselves at her, holding on with desperate strength. The depositions were brutal. Robert Chen, Eleanor's lawyer, was sharp. Miss Morrison, you filed for bankruptcy 8 months ago. $3 million in debts, correct? Yes. And you were hospitalized at Mass General, psychiatric ward, for severe depression following a pregnancy loss. How severe? You received electroconvulsive therapy? 3 sessions. It's standard treatment when medication fails. Chen flipped through notes. After release, you lost your apartment, your car was repossessed, and you were homeless. I was staying with friends while looking for housing. Friends, plural? Or one friend who asked you to leave? Graham objected, but the damage was done. Marcus's deposition was worse. Chen asked about physical similarities between Natalie and Rachel, presented photographic evidence. Side-by-side comparisons showing the red hair, similar build, facial features. The week before the hearing, witnesses testified. Mrs. Patterson, the principal. Lily had gone from selectively mute to thriving. Rose's behavioral issues had resolved completely. Dr. Walsh was unshakable. The girls have shown marked improvement in attachment security and emotional regulation. They're laughing again, playing again. Despite Miss Morrison's psychiatric hospitalization? Chen asked. Her experience with grief makes her uniquely qualified to help these girls. But Eleanor had experts too. Dr. Westmore testified about attachment disorders when unstable caregivers leave. Eleanor's society friends spoke glowingly of Rachel, implicitly showing how Natalie didn't measure up. The night before the hearing, Natalie worked until 2 a.m. on the launch. Marcus found her surrounded by code and coffee. You should sleep. So should you. He sat beside her in silence. Finally, I'm sorry. For my mother, for dragging you into this. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this. Her voice was fierce. Those girls deserve to be happy. You deserve to move forward. Marcus took her hand. 30 days be damned. I'm falling in love with you. I think I have been since that first morning when you stood in the snow. Marcus, I know. Bad timing. But if we lose tomorrow, I needed you to know. We won't lose, Natalie said. This is worth fighting for. They sat holding hands until dawn. The courthouse was intimidating, high ceilings, marble floors, the weight of judgment. Eleanor arrived with her entourage. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, fair but traditional, had granted custody to grandparents before. Eleanor took the stand first, poised, devastating. I loved Rachel like a daughter. I held her hand through chemotherapy. I was there when she made Marcus promise to care for our girls. Genuine tears fell. Miss Morrison looks like Rachel, sounds like her. Marcus hired her without proper vetting. Within weeks, she'd positioned herself as indispensable. Chen played video from Dr. Amanda Chen's assessment. The girls in Eleanor's living room, careful and polite. If you could choose, would you rather live with your father or grandmother? We want to stay with Daddy. Even if Miss Morrison might leave? Lily's face crumpled. Rose reached for her sister. We don't want anyone to leave. During recess, Graham's phone buzzed. Dr. Walsh is here. She wants to speak with the judge. When they returned, Judge Morrison's expression had shifted. Mrs. Thornfield, Dr. Walsh indicates you declined family therapy invitations, yet you requested psychological evaluation without informing their father? Eleanor stiffened. I was concerned. Your concern is noted. However, all professionals agree the girls are thriving. The judge removed her glasses. This appears less about welfare and more about your disapproval of your son's choices. She looked at Eleanor directly. If Marcus ended his relationship with Miss Morrison, would you withdraw? Eleanor's face calculated. If he demonstrated better judgment? Yes. Mr. Thornfield, would you like to speak? Marcus stood, transforming into the CEO. Your Honor, my mother's right I made mistakes. I shut down after Rachel died, became absent, hired 9 nannies who failed. He turned to Eleanor. But Natalie isn't a mistake. She's the best decision I've made. Not because she looks like Rachel, though yes, there are similarities, but because she told me truths I needed to hear, helped my daughters grieve properly, challenged me to live instead of exist. His voice cracked. My mother's terrified I'm moving on, but Rachel would have wanted me to live. He pulled out an envelope. She told me so in a letter before she died. Eleanor went white. That's private. Judge Morrison read it. Her expression softened. This is clear. Your late wife gave explicit permission. After another recess, the judge returned. I've reviewed everything. Mrs. Thornfield, your concerns are unfounded. The evidence shows the girls are thriving. Miss Morrison's past struggles demonstrate resilience, not weakness. Eleanor gripped the table. However, I'm troubled by the family dynamics. I recommend family therapy, including Mrs. Thornfield. Eleanor's lawyer whispered urgently. She nodded. Your Honor, my client withdraws the petition. Eleanor stood, looking her age, tired and human. I was wrong. I thought I was protecting Rachel's memory, but I was protecting myself from losing control. She turned to Marcus. I'm sorry. Then to Natalie. I owe you the biggest apology. Rachel was irreplaceable, but you're not trying to replace her. You're helping my family heal. On the courthouse steps, Eleanor approached Natalie privately. I want you to have these. She pulled out a velvet box, Rachel's pearls, worn at her wedding. You're going to be part of this family. You deserve them. Mrs. Thornfield, in the courtroom, when Marcus read Rachel's letter, I realized she was a living person who wanted her family to thrive. She'd want them happy. Eleanor pressed the box into her hands. You're not Rachel, but you're exactly who they need now. In the car, Marcus spoke quietly. I've been in therapy for 10 weeks. Dr. Walsh asked what I was afraid of with you. And? Dishonoring Rachel's memory. The girls thinking I'd forgotten their mother. You leaving. What did she say? That fear is just love with nowhere to go. That caring isn't betrayal, it's survival. Marcus, I'm falling in love with you. Maybe since that first morning. Maybe the mashed potatoes. Maybe watching you tell them the truth about Rachel. I don't know when. I just know it's happening. We're business partners. The girls depend on us. This is complicated. Catastrophically complicated. But it's real. I'm done with safe. He reached for her hand. If you need time, I understand. But I needed you to know. Natalie's fingers tangled with his. I'm terrified too. Of depending on someone. Of losing myself in someone else's family. Of hurting those girls. So we're both terrified. A terrible start. The worst. But maybe we're supposed to be terrified together. I'm staying because when I'm here, I feel less broken. Like maybe all my pieces might fit into something whole. The girls mobbed them when they arrived. Did the judge say we could stay together? All of us, Marcus confirmed, scooping them up. Especially Miss Nat. Forever then, Lily declared. We decided. That evening in the garden, spring had arrived. Crocuses pushed through earth. Rose bushes showed green buds. The business launches tomorrow, Marcus said, showing her the announcement. Natalie Morrison, CEO and co-founder. What if it fails? Then we fail together and figure out what's next. But I'm investing because it's brilliant, because I believe in you. I love you too, she said. I didn't want to, but somewhere between the mashed potatoes and the custody hearing, I fell completely in love with you and your daughters and this chaotic, beautiful family. He kissed her then, soft and careful. When they pulled apart, Mrs. Caldwell was watching from the window, smiling. We're always going to have an audience, Marcus said. 2 little girls and a housekeeper. More than okay. Upstairs, the girls watched. Do you think they're getting married? Maybe. Eventually. Lily considered. Is that okay? Rose thought seriously. Mommy would want Daddy happy. And Miss Nat makes him happy. She makes us happy too. So maybe it's okay to have 2 people you love?
Mommy who's gone, and Miss Nat who's here?
They fell asleep holding hands, smiling for the first time since Rachel died. Marcus pulled out Rachel's letter, her handwriting shaky but hers. My love, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't drown in grief. Find someone who makes you laugh again, someone who loves our girls. Give yourself permission to be happy. That's not betrayal. That's honoring our love by proving it taught you how to love again. Let the girls have a mother figure. Promise me you won't stay frozen forever. Love, Rachel. He read it 3 times. I'm trying. I'm falling in love with someone remarkable. I hope you approve. The room offered no answer, but somewhere in the silence, Marcus felt a shift. The grief transforming into something bearable, not gone, but integrated. Downstairs, Natalie held Rachel's pearls up to the light. Thank you for loving them so well that they know how to love again. For teaching Marcus that life is precious. I'll honor what you started. She clasped them around her neck. They settled like a benediction. 6 months later, Marcus proposed in the garden while planting bulbs. Girls, should I ask Miss Nat to marry us?
Marry us?
Rose's eyes went huge.
We're a package deal.
Marcus opened the box. Not Rachel's ring, that was saved for the girls. This was new. A sapphire surrounded by diamonds, blue like Emma's birthstone. I can't promise easy. We're all still healing. But I promise to choose you every day to build something beautiful from all this broken. Natalie Morrison, will you marry us? Yes. The girls cheered, and somewhere, Rachel smiled. Because love doesn't diminish when shared. It multiplies. The wedding was small, garden ceremony, October afternoon. Eleanor walked Natalie down the aisle. Mrs. Caldwell officiated. We witnessed the joining of 2 people who've known profound loss, she said. They could have let it define them. Instead, they let it teach them. The vows were personal. Marcus, you came when I'd given up on living. You challenged me to be present. You gave me permission to love again. I promise to choose you every day. Natalie, when we met, I had nothing. You saw someone who'd survived. You gave me family. You gave me love when I'd convinced myself I didn't deserve it. I promise to choose you and these girls every single day. They exchanged rings. Love multiplies. Choose brave. As they kissed, it began to snow. Early October snow. Mommy sent snow, Rose shouted. Marcus smiled through tears. Yeah, baby, I think she did. 1 year later, Natalie discovered she was pregnant. 12 weeks, healthy heartbeat. She told Marcus in the garden, I'm pregnant. He kissed her, then panicked. Is kissing okay? Everything's fine. They told the girls at breakfast. You're going to be big sisters. Rose shrieked. Lily asked, when? Next spring. Boy or girl? We don't know. What would you like? A sister, they said together. We know how to handle sisters. At 20 weeks, when she'd lost Emma, Natalie broke down. Marcus found her sobbing in the nursery. What if I lose this one too? Everything looks perfect. You're healthy, the baby's healthy. That's what they said about Emma. I know, but this isn't the same pregnancy. You're not the same person. He held her. I'm scared too. After Rachel, I never thought I'd have more children, but fear isn't a reason not to love. Dr. Walsh was direct. You lost Emma. That's trauma you'll carry forever. But you can't let it steal your future. You've survived the worst. You're not fragile. You're a survivor. The girls helped. They talked to Natalie's belly, made drawings, debated names.
What about Rachel?
Lily asked quietly. The room stilled. Would you like that? Maybe Rachel Sophie? Then she's her own person but also remembers. Marcus's eyes filled. That's beautiful. They chose Rachel Hope Thornfield for a girl, James Alexander for a boy. The baby was born in April, 16 hours of labor. At 4:37 p.m., Rachel Hope entered the world screaming. 8 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. When they placed her on Natalie's chest, all fear melted.
Hi, baby girl. We've been waiting for you.
Marcus cradled her with practiced ease and new wonder. She's perfect.
Thank you for being brave enough to do this.
Thank you for convincing me I deserved happiness. When Lily and Rose arrived, they approached with reverence. Lily touched Rachel Hope's tiny hand. The baby grasped it.
She knows I'm her sister.
Eleanor stood back, crying. She mouthed,
Thank you for giving our family new life.
Marcus dove into fatherhood completely. Midnight feedings, diaper changes. I missed this with the twins. I was hiding. I'm not hiding this time. One afternoon, Natalie found all 3 girls in the nursery, Lily reading, Rose making faces, Rachel Hope watching. You know what's cool? Lily told the baby. We have 2 mommies, one in heaven and one here. So we're double lucky. Natalie's heart cracked open. That night, she told Marcus. They're healing, not forgetting Rachel, but making room for new love alongside the old. That's what we're all doing, making room. On Rachel Hope's first birthday, they celebrated in the garden. Eleanor helped set up. Rachel would be so happy to see this family thriving. You think so? I know so. I was so wrong about you, Natalie. I'm grateful you gave me a second chance. The party was perfect. Cake, laughter, the girls performing for their sister. That evening, Marcus and Natalie stood in the garden. Early October snow began falling, just like the day they'd met. "Do you ever think about that first morning?" Marcus asked. "Every day." What would your past self say, seeing this now? Natalie considered. That woman, desperate and broken, standing in the cold with 70 cents. I think she'd be amazed and proud because she didn't give up. She kept choosing to try, and that choice led to all of this. I'm grateful she was brave. They stood as snow fell, 2 people who'd loved and lost and learned to love again, transformed by loss into something capable of holding both joy and sorrow. Inside, Mrs. Caldwell hummed. Upstairs, Lily and Rose slept holding hands. In the nursery, Rachel Hope dreamed, safe and loved. And somewhere, the first Rachel smiled. Her family was whole again, different, but whole. That night, Marcus pulled out an old photograph. Him, Rachel, and the infant twins before her diagnosis. Everyone smiling, unaware. I used to look at this and feel only pain, but now I see it differently. This love was real. It didn't end. It just made room for more. He placed it beside a newer photo. Him, Natalie, Lily, Rose, and Rachel Hope at the wedding. 2 families, separated by loss, connected by love. Both things can be true, Natalie said. You can love the past and embrace the future. Both things can be true. They fell asleep holding hands,
In the morning, life would continue in all its messy, beautiful glory. But tonight, there was only peace. The peace from choosing courage over fear.
From learning the human heart can hold more love than we ever thought possible. Outside, snow continued falling. Not an ending, but a promise. Winter would always return, but so would spring. After loss comes rebuilding. After grief comes healing. After winter comes thaw. And after darkness, always light.